everybody. Rob Morrow here on the set of Home and Family. I was just on and I didn't get to tell this one story that I love. When I was 15, I realized I wanted to be an actor, and I was living in Florida at the time, and they were making the movie Caddyshack, and I heard about it, and I saw in the paper that they needed extras, and they wanted extras who were actually caddies, which I had done as a kid. I had caddied a bit, and I went and got a job as an extra, and loved it so much that I cut school for 6 weeks to be an extra in this movie, and I am all over that movie. If you know the movie Caddyshack, there's a fat version of me in almost every scene where there's a crowd on the golf course. You see me, and because I was a real kid, because they had a hard time finding kids young enough that seemed like they'd be young caddies because they couldn't get them out of school, and because I was one of the only ones, I became a bit of a mascot on the set, and they treated me so well and showed me all how the film was made and how films are made. And Michael O'Keefe, who is a friend now, used to, when I get online for lunch, he would tell the people that were serving that I was the star of the movie, which to a 15-year-old boy was like amazing. And when the movie was done, Brian Doyle Murray, who's Bill Murray's brother, who wrote the movie, handed me a card with his number and said, "Hey kid, you ever come to New York, give me a call." So I kept that thing like it was the holy grail, and a couple years later I moved to New York to start my career as an actor, and I called him up and he was like, "Yeah, I think I remember you." So it was 1979, and it was in the heyday of Saturday Night Live, and he said, "Rodney Dangerfield, who's in Caddyshack, is the host of the show this week. Why don't you come up and you can be an extra on the show?" So I was like, "I'm there." So I went up to Saturday Night Live, which was the most amazing experience to be there at that time, and they made me an extra in a jury scene where Rodney Dangerfield was the host. And cut to I think it was about 12 years later, I was hosting the show, and I went in on Monday of the week you're hosting. You go and you meet with Warren Michaels, and he gives you the lay of the land, and you talk about what the themes of your monologue may be. And I said, I was on the show. And he was like, "What?" I said, "Yeah." So they pulled up the clip, and in my monologue I talked about being on the show. And so the reason I love this story so much is because there's been many instances in my life of what we call synchronicity, where things happened, that seemed to make sense. That the timing of them seemed to augur well for the future and give me the encouragement. The fact that Brian gave me his number and said, "Come to New York." The fact that when I got to New York, he said, "Come on up." The fact that then years later I was hosting the show, all just kind of makes sense. And I look for those synchronistic signs whenever I can to know I'm on the right path. So I love sharing that story for that. And even though I cut school, which is not something I would recommend, for me, that was the path, and so there's not one way to get where you have to go.